So, friends, in the event that you are at all worried that the federal courts, the federal judges might be weakening in their resolve to hold Trump and his flunkies accountable for their lawlessness, for their unconstitutional conduct, well, just listen to what Judge Joseph Goodwin, on the bench for more than 3 decades, just said about Donald Trump's brigade of masked ICE agents. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, there's no two ways about it. The federal judges remain points of light, beacons of light amidst the Trump-induced darkness. Now we're going to start briefly with some of the new reporting, but then we're going to go right to a scorched earth judicial condemnation of Trump's lawlessness and unconstitutionality. Let's start with the new reporting. This from Bloomberg. Headline, Judge rebukes masked ICE arrests as secret policing regime. And that article begins. A federal judge excoriated immigration agents for making arrests while wearing masks that conceal their identities in a scathing opinion that references a regime of secret policing and mask wearing by Ku Klux Klan members. Judge Joseph Goodwin of the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of West Virginia found on Thursday that U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents violated an immigrant's constitutional rights when they arrested him in masks and detained him without a bond hearing. The agents' presence with masks, unmarked cars, and without badges is indistinguishable from lawbreakers, and the arrest that followed is the elimination of constitutional accountability itself. Judge Goodwin, a Clinton appointee who sat on the bench for over 3 decades, wrote in a 34-page decision. The ruling is part of broader judicial backlash to the Trump administration's aggressive tactics to carry out its arrest and deportation campaign. Democrats on Capitol Hill stalled funding for the Department of Homeland Security while they push for a ban on most agents wearing masks, among other demands. And friends, let's go right to Judge Goodwin's opinion, and I'm going to ask you to stick with me for a minute because I want to read just about a page and a half of his scorched earth opening salvo, and then we're going to jump right to the conclusion. In the case of Anderson Jesus Arquilla Ramos, petitioner, versus Donald J. Trump et al. And others, respondents, memorandum, opinion, and order. Antiseptic judicial rhetoric cannot do justice to what is happening. Across the interior of the United States, agents of the federal government, masked, anonymous, armed with military weapons, operating from unmarked vehicles, acting without warrants of any kind, are seizing persons for civil immigration violations and imprisoning them without any semblance of due process. The systematic character of this practice and its deliberate elimination of every structural feature that distinguishes constitutional authority from raw force place it beyond the reach of ordinary legal description. It is an assault on the constitutional order. It is what the Fourth Amendment was written to prevent. It is what the Due Process Clause of the Fifth Amendment forbids. The petition for writ of habeas corpus, that is the great writ commanding the government to bring the body of the prisoner before the court so the judge can decide whether he or she is being confined by our government unlawfully and unconstitutionally. The petition for the writ of habeas corpus, filed by petitioner Anderson Jesus Arquilla Ramos, brings just that circumstance before this court as a discrete case and controversy. This court will decide it as such, but I will not pretend through careful procedural language that what is at issue here is a technical question of statutory interpretation. The overarching issue is whether the federal government may deploy anonymous agents to seize persons on American streets and highways for civil violations without warrants, without identification, and without any process before or after. The Constitution does not permit that. The remainder of this opinion explains why. In our constitutional republic, governmental force derives its authority from the Constitution, but that authority is not unlimited. The government's power is legitimate only because it is derived from the people and exercised through law by identifiable public officers answerable to the public and to the courts. The structure of the Constitution guarantees visibility. Both the officer and the force he employs are traceable to authority delegated by the people and subject to the limits imposed by law. When the government uses force against the public, the citizen can recognize the officer as a lawful representative. The public can evaluate the act. The judiciary can later review it. Every stop, arrest, detention, and use of force can be tested against the Constitution's protections. Not so here. For these reasons and the reasons that follow, petitioner's amended verified petition for writ of habeas corpus is granted. The court finds that both his Fourth Amendment right to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures, as well as his Fifth Amendment right to due process, have been violated. Immediate release is the only relief sufficient to remedy petitioner's unlawful detention. Judge Goodwin could not have made it any clearer. What Donald Trump is doing through DHS and CBP and ICE in putting these masked agents who are behaving like masked marauders on the streets of our American cities to violate both the Fourth Amendment's prohibition against unreasonable searches and seizures and the Fifth Amendment's guarantee of due process of law is not just lawless, not just unconstitutional, but reprehensible, unbefitting of what we thought was our civilized society. Here is what Judge Goodwin says in his conclusion. An anonymous government is no government at all. It cannot be held accountable. A masked agent freely uses force without justifying his actions, and the public cannot name him to challenge his conduct. A regime of secret policing has no place in our society. Here, the government, the Trump administration's power is derived by the people, and the people must be able to identify the government when it acts to infringe on their liberty. Masks obscure government action and deprive the public of its Fourth Amendment protections. And friends, the federal judges aren't just holding strong. They're ruling against, they're pushing back against, they're condemning the lawlessness of the Trump regime. Heck, even the Supreme Court just ruled that Trump's tariff insanity is unconstitutional. And it's not just the federal judges who are delivering defeats one after another to Trump and company. It's also we the people. When Trump tries to nefariously indict senators and sandwich throwers, it is grand juries, one after another, that defeat him. That's right, friends. Grand juries, one after another, sitting as the conscience of the community, have been defeating Trump. And trial juries, one after another, are sitting as the conscience of the community and defeating Donald Trump. And friends, today, with Donald Trump's daily abuse of power, his lawlessness, and his unconstitutionality, every day is a trial. And friends, every day we, the people, will serve as the jurors, as the conscience of the community, right up to and including when we go to the polls and we vote. And we won't just vote against everything Trump represents, but in a very real and direct sense. We, the people, as the jurors, as the conscience of the community, will vote Trump and company guilty. Because justice matters. Friends, as always, please stay safe. Please stay tuned. And I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.